We need to build our workforce. And right now, that's our new Mainers are doing that for us. It's also, I have personal experience with this. Finishing a project in Portland. Last month, we needed to hang sheetrock, and the general contractor was way behind. I walk on site, there's 20 people, none of them speaking English, hanging sheetrock. They got paid a week later, they all went to Massachusetts and spent their money in Massachusetts. We need to build a workforce here in Maine, and keep the money in Maine. And as an aging community, we need workforces in caregivers, construction, processing professionals. The last thing, I see I'm out of time, is we talk about this brain drain, how we educate our kids and then they go out of state. Here we have the reverse of the brain drain. I've been working with these asylum seekers, I know them. They're all educated in Africa, in France, in England, and they're coming here. And so we really need to retain them. And the last thing I'll just say is when I came here in 1970, and to start my business, I needed assistance. I lived in Munjoy Hill, kind of a subsidized apartment. Now I'm one of the top taxpayers, probably in the 10%. And every time I pay taxes, I feel good about it. I do, because I know some of my taxes give me opportunities for people like me, again and again. So, and I hope it will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Gabrielson and Daniel Muster, Father Seavey, and then Andy Lunt. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Sue Gabrielson, and I'm the Executive Director for the Maine Council of Churches, representing 500 communities of faith across the state of Maine. And I'm here to express my concern over the elimination of general assistance for new Mainers. I'd like you to, we've had a tough afternoon already, right? Rest your brains for a minute, and I'd ask you to listen with your hearts. Christian and Ornella were orphaned in Burundi after witnessing the traumatic deaths of their parents. They were rescued by a relief agency from the life-threatening danger they faced, and they were put on a plane. I wonder how many of you have children? Really? You have children? I have an 11 and a 16-year-old daughter. Can you imagine your kids getting put on a plane with only the clothes on their back and a passport? No money, no phone, no luggage, taking off and not knowing where in the world you're going to land. That is Christian and Ornella's story. They landed in Detroit. Someone from a relief agency there put them on a bus to Portland because they read somewhere on the internet that there were other people from Burundi in Maine. No one met them at the bus station. They wandered until a kind passerby in Portland pointed them to the Preble Street Teen Shelter. They had no say in the journey that has become their life. If this happened to your teenagers, if it happened to my daughters, I would hope that someone, wherever they landed, would help them. We are first and foremost members of one human family. Some would say under God. And any policy that seeks to divide or categorize us along these artificial lines is destructive. Whether our compass is the Bible, where Matthew reminds us that we should care for the least among us, or if it's our military creed that says it vows to leave no one behind, or something else entirely, we have a moral obligation to care for one another. Part of why we choose to live in Maine is because we know and understand the value of community. We know we can count on one another, and we hope that when faced with hard choices, and I understand these are hard choices, that our leaders will remember that too. Now, despite the fact that Christian and Ornella are smart and resourceful kids, they each speak 5 languages. They've never missed a day of school since they arrived. Their story could have had a very different ending. It could have ended with them enduring this impossible winter as homeless kids who were hungry. But because of assistance, they are gratefully living in a tiny apartment in Portland. They have food and are thriving. Since September, they have learned English. They have found the resources that they need to be happy, healthy teens. They even go to church. That makes us clergy very happy. They're not getting into trouble, they're not exploiting the system. In order to walk the talk that I preach, I became Christian's legal guardian in December, and we've been working through the juvenile emergency asylum process, and I am ecstatic to report, coincidentally, that yesterday, Christian's employment authorization came in the mail. That means he can start to work, and he won't need assistance anymore. Without assistance, Christian and Ronella's story would have been very different. Eliminating GA for new Mainers like Christian and Ronella is turning our backs on some of the most vulnerable people, including teens and children, many of them who have already experienced trauma and hardship and don't have a say. And doing this does not align with our values as Mainers. As a mom and a minister and a long-term Maine resident, I work each day to live up to our state's ethics of community and to make sure that community includes everyone. I'm counting on all of you, on our state's leadership to do the same, to safeguard all members of our community in this difficult budget discernment process, despite where they were born. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Daniel Ungier, I think, and then I have Michael Seavey, Ann Lunt, and Ruben Warhol.
Well, members of the committee, thank you in advance for your time in listening to my testimony. My name is Daniel Unger, and I'm speaking today as a resident and property owner of Portland in opposition to the many proposals that selectively eliminate public assistance for various groups of immigrants. And I'm here today because my family came to the United States as refugees. They came to this country in 1978 from Poland, and they dreamt of leaving behind the repressions of a communist country in exchange for the freedoms of our democracy. They only had the faith that America would open its doors and help them take the steps to start a new life. So after about 6 months of learning survival English, where to shop, how you pay the bills in this country, my father was fortunate to find a job in this field, and as a result, my parents did not receive public assistance for long. But for those 6 months, aside from that assistance, they literally had nothing. They had nothing but a baby to feed and the belief that they had come to a country that wanted to help them make their dreams possible. That with their hard work, they would get the extra help they needed to achieve a better life. They found a country that was willing to help, that got their back when they were getting on their feet. My mom went to school part-time while raising her 2 kids, and she received her degree the same year I left for college. So I grew up in a family of confidence, believing anything is possible. And my parents found a country that valued giving them help when they needed it. And they were able to build the future they hoped for. Governor LePage, in his inaugural address back in 2011, stated that the public assistance programs for the truly needy and impaired are an important lifeline that forms the safety net of a healthy society. I believe strongly that our state's newly arrived and legal immigrants who are working hard deserve to be part of that safety net and part of that vision for a healthy society. The governor also told a story in that inaugural address of a former welfare recipient named Jennifer. She relied on TANF and food supplement programs while she was raising her family and going to school. She went on to graduate from nursing school and become an example of that vision of how public assistance helps pave the way for success. And I was personally very moved when the governor paused his address and asked the entire audience to stop and applaud her accomplishments that may not have been possible without that assistance. And in commenting on how she achieved it, he quoted Jennifer herself, who said, "A life well lived does not happen all at once." Now, Commissioner Mayhew has talked about prioritization and making choices. But I cannot understand why we would not offer that kind of support to the immigrants who are here today, to people who want to contribute to the state, to become part of our community, and who are doing nothing more than using social services as a stepping stone to independence. The only reason I personally heard was that the feds do it that way. And it probably seems there are a lot of things that we would not do just because the federal government does that way.
And summing it up.
So I have to ask, why are we not pausing to applaud the victories of these individuals as they live a life here, as we did for Jennifer? And why are we proposing to withdraw our support of their hard work to become Americans? If the reason is that Jennifer was perhaps from Oxford or York County and these individuals are from abroad, those aren't the American values I was raised with growing up in this country. And the Commissioner talked about prioritization as a way to support the most vulnerable, but that prioritization was defined based on who somebody is and not based on actual need or vulnerability.
in summary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Senator Valentino?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just, your whole testimony, you seem to praise the governor on his wanting to help these people, and you're asking us not to apply the lifeline selectively. You understand, this committee did not propose this reduction. The governor did.
Yes, I do understand. I'm just trying to draw a
It
connection
just
between.
seems like you're,
Yeah,
just wanted to
I
make
do
sure you
understand that
understood
the
that.
proposal did not come.
we're not planning. I mean, we didn't propose.
I do
The
understand.
governor.
I apologize if that wasn't clear in the way my statements were written.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Members of the legislature, my name is Father Michael Seavey, and I'm pastor of 5 Roman Catholic parishes in Portland. In our parishes, we have communities of Africans, primarily from the nations of South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, and Cameroon. When in the seminary 30 years ago, I could never have imagined pastoring among people who had been tortured, or pastoring among people who had been raped as a weapon of war, or had witnessed entire families murdered before their eyes. Yet that is the reality that I and many other Christian leaders struggle with today in Portland. Nor could I have imagined these same people sitting in church week after week, struggling with food security issues and other poverty-related situations from Monday through Saturday. The issue before us involves granting general assistance to those who come to our state, often with the clothes on their back and a strong religious faith in their hearts. Why this issue is before us perplexes me. Providing assistance to these people should be the least controversial of all issues relating to general assistance. They need temporary assistance to settle down, stabilize their families, and begin the hard work of raising their families in a new culture with new languages and through something called winter, which previously was a rumor. I have listened, and I mean this, I have listened to many of these young African men and women. They come from different countries, but they share similar goals. First of all, they're grateful to our nation that they are here, and grateful to our state, city, and the church for the opportunity to help create better lives for them and their families. These young people have big dreams. Their dreams are for education, professional careers, owning their own businesses, and raising their families in safe communities. They want freedom, and they are committed to contributing to a just and free society. The vast majority of these African refugees and asylees are already imbued with the duties and responsibilities of citizenship, so often because they were active citizens in their homeland made them a threat to the powers to be. They are ready and more than willing to make huge contributions to the communities they will eventually settle in. I would hope that we would want to make sure they make those contributions in our main communities. We need their dreams, their hard work, their determination, their intellectual strength, and their youthful idealism to re-energize our neighborhoods, communities, and local economies across the state. These are similar to the dreams of so many of our grandparents coming to this country from Europe in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We know the contributions these waves of immigrants and refugees continue making to our state and nation several generations from their first arrival. These African guests in our state will make their contributions to all of us within a very short period of time. I urge you to reject any measures restricting eligibility or eliminating funding for these people to receive general assistance, and I would also add TANF and the food stamp program as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann Lunt, or Annie Lunt?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Annie Lunt, and I live in Augusta, and I've recently become friends with a family from Baghdad. I'm here today to speak in opposition to the elimination of the state-funded TANF program for immigrants. That, if passed, would mean this family would lose their home and their hope for a decent life. I have seen firsthand how difficult it is to survive in a different culture, speaking a different language, and dealing with very different weather. It's confusing enough if you do speak English to get through to services. Recording after recording, press this number for this, press this number for that. What is a minor nuisance for us is more of a major impediment for them. This family has been in the United States for about 6 months. The father goes to the Learning Center 3 days a week. The mother is home with 2 sons, ages 2 and 5. She's suffering from major depression and PTSD. She saw 2 brothers murdered in vicious and brutal ways. Although she and her husband are both from Baghdad, they met and married in Syria, where they were for 5 years. They were then sent to Turkey, where they lived for 3 years, before coming to the United States. The husband worked in Turkey as a construction supervisor. The only thing that makes it difficult for him to find a job now is his lack of English. He's learning quickly, he's intelligent, he's motivated, and persevering, but he cannot make the transition overnight, and I don't think any one of us could. They are kind and loving parents. They are always welcoming to those who visit. When you visit, you will immediately be offered a cup of chai. Their children will entertain you, as children do. I feel sure that investing in the services to help this family to transition will benefit our society in many ways and for many years.
Thank you. Ruben? And then I have Vincent from Portland, Emily Hennessy, and David Harris. Forgive me for not trying to pronounce the last name. I'll let you do that.
My name is Ruben. I'm speaking in opposition to the elimination of GA for non-citizens of immigrant or asylum seekers. I was born and raised in DR Congo. Have worked in different positions, including 5 years as high school principal, 5 years as hospital administrator, 12 years as medical department coordinator, and finally 10 years as Secretary General of Pentecostal Church for 5 countries in Africa. But because of ethnic and politics war in Congo, I had to leave because I have been targeted. 10 times I escaped death. Finally, I didn't have any other choice. In the meantime, I have lost many family members back home in Congo. I lived in Burundi for 3 years as refugees, but for safety reasons, I had to leave. I found myself in the US in 2007. I applied for my asylum. It was granted in 2008. I petitioned for my family. I had my green card, and now I am an American citizen. After arriving in Portland in May, I didn't have any support and didn't have any way to survive. Then I learned about general assistance, assisting people without income, like I was. I went there, I explained my situation, I received vouchers for food and no food, and was allowed to look for an apartment. From that time, in addition to food and no food, my rent was also paid every month. That is how I was able to survive. That is how I was able to restart another life. That's how my hope came back. I knew the assistance was just a bridge between the despair and the hope, between the dependence and self-sufficiency. That's why after my asylum was granted, I worked hard to find a job. I found my first part-time job at Mass Home Care, then a full-time at Sparrowing, and now I'm working with Catholic Charities as survivors of torture case manager, but also I'm the senior pastor of Philadelphia Church in Poland. I am able now to provide for my family and even to help others. I feel really happy that I don't have to depend on assistance. But I will never forget that I survived because of the support from GA. It has helped me to transition and start a new life. I want to let you know that most of these asylum seekers are in a similar situation. They are well educated. They have worked for many years in different positions back home in their country. But because of war, they had to flee. They are here looking for assistance because they don't have any income. They are willing and eager to work to support themselves and their family like they did in the past. But it takes time before it happens. That's where GA has played a crucial role by supporting them for a short time in order for them to be self-sufficient. By doing that, General Assistance is investing like it did for me and many others. Today, many of those asylum seekers who were under General Assistance are active, self-sufficient, and contributing to raise the economy of the state. Cutting GA assistance to those needy people would be catastrophic to many families that have come looking for safety in the land of opportunities. I want to remind you that assisting asylum seekers is not wasting money like many may think, but it is investing in people like they did for me and many others, and the state of Maine will benefit from that. Thank you for your consideration.
Representative Green has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry I missed a couple minutes of your beginning. Thank you for your testimony. Your last line about the land of opportunities.
Yes.
Before you came to America, what does that mean to you, land of opportunities?
To be honest, the first goal, the first purpose for me to come here was for safety. Because I had a very good job, I have everything, but I didn't have safety. So I have left everything I had in order to find a safe place. That's why I came to this country. Yeah.
Thank you.
Representative Soraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Reverend Gaza. Thank you for being here. I noticed that it says in your testimony that you came to the United States in 2007. Did you come to Maine in 2007?
Yes.
You did.
I did, yeah.
Okay, how did you hear about coming to Maine? Because that's a long way from where you're from.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't come because of the weather. But it was some, I have heard some, there were some people here in Maine from my country, so I have heard about them. That's why I came, because I didn't have any other way to go.
And it looks like in 2004 is the last time you fled your country, and then you arrived here in 2007?
Yes.
So it took you a long time to get here.
Yes, I lived in Burundi, like I said, 3 years as a refugee, but it didn't go because of what happened to our tribe. You know what happened in Katumba refugee camp? Our people were killed, so we had to flee because we were not sent home.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you again. Vincent? Good afternoon.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Je veux remercier les membres du comité pour écouter mon témoignage.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the committee members for listening to my testimony.
Je m'appelle Vincent Mwamba. Je vis à Portland avec ma femme Victorine. Je me présente devant vous aujourd'hui pour me prononcer contre l'élimination du programme SSI financé par l'État pour les immigrants. Au cas où elle serait adoptée, cette élimination voudrait dire que nous deviendrons des sans-abri. Nous ne pourrions plus acheter de quoi nous nourrir et nous ne pourrions même plus acheter un billet d'autobus pour quitter. Nous serons obligés de retourner au foyer pour sans-abri.
My name is Vincent Mugumba. I live in Portland with my wife, Victorine. I'm here today to speak in opposition to the elimination of state-funded SSI program for immigrants. That if passed would mean that we would become homeless. We won't be able to buy food to eat. We won't even be able to buy a bus ticket to leave. We'll have to go back to the shelter.
Lorsque nous sommes arrivés ici, ma femme et moi furent placés dans des foyers séparés. J'ai passé la première nuit à même des planchers, avec tous les autres hommes alignés comme des personnes décédées dans une morgue. Je devais rentrer à 18h du soir et quitter à 6h du matin. J'attendais dans un terrain vague près du foyer jusqu'à 6h du soir pour regagner le foyer. Il est préférable de mourir que de vivre ainsi.
When we first came here, my wife and I were put in separate shelters. I spent the night on the floor. I slept with all of the other men lined up like people in a morgue. I had to be in by 6 p.m. and I had to leave by 6 a.m. I waited in a vacant lot near the shelter until 6 p.m. came again. It is better to die than to live like that.
J'ai 70 ans. Ma santé est fragile. Ma femme a 54 ans et souffre des problèmes de santé. Pourtant, nous sommes tous les deux capables de travailler. Je fais du bénévolat 25 heures par semaine au programme Goodwill d'emploi pour les personnes âgées, ainsi que 3 heures par semaine à Mercy Hospital de Portland. J'assiste également à des classes d'anglais et d'ordinateur, 5 heures par semaine. Je paye une partie des frais pour ces classes.
I am 70 years old. My health is not stable. My wife is 54 years old and has some health problems. Still, both of us are able and ready to work as much as we can if we can find work. I volunteer 25 hours a week in Goodwill Employment Program for seniors. I also volunteer 3 hours a week at Mercy Hospital, and I attend English and computer classes 5 hours a week. I pay some fees for the classes.
Ma femme et moi sommes venus ici du Congo, au Congo. J'étais juge. Le gouvernement m'a ordonné de condamner un innocent. Ayant appris que j'étais opposé à cet ordre, le gouvernement a envoyé des agents pour m'enlever. Heureusement, ils ne m'ont pas trouvé chez moi, mais ils ont trouvé ma femme et mes enfants. Ils ont gravement frappé mon fils et violé ma femme et mes filles. Le lendemain, j'ai promis de me conformer à l'ordre du gouvernement. Entre-temps, je me préparais à quitter le pays, ce que j'ai effectivement fait avec ma femme la veille de la séance prévue au tribunal. J'ai envoyé mes enfants rester avec des amis et de la famille où ils seraient en sécurité.
My wife and I came here from Congo. In Congo, I was a judge. The government ordered me to convict an innocent man. When they found out I was opposed to their order, they sent agents to my home to kidnap me. Luckily, they didn't find me home. They found my wife and my children. They beat my son badly, and they raped my wife and my daughters. The next day, I promised to comply with the government's order. In the meantime, I prepared to flee the country. Before the judgment day, I left the country with my wife and sent my children to live with friends and family where they would be safe.
C'est la raison pour laquelle je me trouve ici aujourd'hui, parce que je sais qu'aux États-Unis d'Amérique, la primauté de la loi est respectée et la loi est aux autorités et la loi et les autorités gouvernementales sont en mesure de me protéger. J'ai fait une demande d'asile il y a 2 ans. J'attends aujourd'hui mon entrevue. S'ils peuvent s'assurer de tenir cette entrevue sans plus de délai, je pourrais obtenir l'asile et travailler et ne plus dépendre de SSI. D'ici là, si vous coupez mon allocation SSI, ma femme et moi n'aurons aucun moyen de vivre. Je vous demande de vous opposer à l'élimination du programme SSI pour l'immigrant financé par l'État.
This is why I came here, because I know in the United States of America, the rule of the law is followed, and the law and the government authorities can protect me. I applied for asylum 2 years ago. I'm still waiting for my interview. If they can make sure they can do an interview soon, I can get my asylum and work and not depend on SSI. Until then, if you cut my SSI, my wife and I will have no way to live. Please oppose the elimination of state-funded SSI program for immigrants.
Merci.
Thank you.
Representative Martin?
Seulement quelques mots. Seulement quelques mots, vous dire merci d'avoir venu ici aujourd'hui pour dire votre histoire.
Merci ce soir.
Thank you again. Aaron Hennessy?
Hello. I just wanted to say good afternoon, Senator Hamper, Representative Rotundo, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, Senator Brakey, Representative Gatine, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Health and Human Services. Special shout out to Representative Jorgensen. It's a pleasure to speak before all of you guys today. My name is Erin Hennessy. I'm co-chair and founding member of Portland Racial Justice Congress. We're here today to stand in opposition and to the proposed cuts to general assistance. We're an organization composed of mainly first and second generation students, concerned youth of color, and white allies, as you see sitting down today. Our goal is to foster a multicultural and racially just community of Portland, and these proposed cuts go directly against our mission. A great percentage of the people of color in Portland, and at Maine at large, are new migrants, and this makes racial justice and immigrant rights inextricably linked, and that's why I stand before you today. Many of our families know firsthand the tolls of moving to a new community, and I'm now going to read our treasurer Hani's story. She could not be here today, as she is busy completing her last semester at the University of Southern Maine. But here's her experience of moving here in her own words. When my family immigrated to the United States in 1994, we, like so many new Mainers, relied on programs like general assistance. We relied on these programs for basic necessities, and they were a tremendous help to my mom. She raised me and my 2 older siblings on her own in a country where she didn't even understand the native language. These programs provided her some relief while dealing with all the tough factors that come along with migrating to a new country. Cuts to general assistance will displace and harm the most vulnerable members of our community, those who, like myself, have escaped indescribable violence. I stand as part of Portland Racial Justice Congress because I know firsthand what inequality and oppression feels like. I want to live in a state that celebrates those who share my story and actively ensures that its minorities receive equal opportunities. Hani's story is like many of our stories. My father came to America when he was just 18 years old from Sierra Leone. Our governor grew up speaking 2 languages in his household. In our northernmost districts, bilingual road signs are common. We all share this American story of migration, and it's our duty to continue in this tradition. The proposed cuts to general assistance would create circumstances wherein people have no legal means to thrive, and thus would create a system that denies self-determination and the pursuit of happiness. And I ask you today, is that not in our Constitution? As Secretary General for the UN, Ban Ki-moon said, "Migration is an expression of the human aspiration for dignity, for safety, and a better future. It's part of the social fabric, part of our very makeup as a human family. It is the makeup of our main family. It's a legacy, both past and present, one we must preserve." Thank you.
Thank you. David Harris, and then I have Fatima, Fatima, Sonia, Aline, Kimberly, and Sebastian.
My name is David Allen Harris. I'm a clinician at Tri-County Mental Health Services in Lewiston. I'll give an abbreviated version of the written comments that I have here. Ours is a nation known across the globe for welcoming people fleeing persecution in other lands. Having the freedom to come before you and make a case for continuing general assistance, food stamps, SSI, and TANF for the needy asylum seekers among us is a blessing I cannot take for granted. I'm lucky to have been born in a country where people can criticize policy proposals they find odious and without the threat of suffering violent retaliation or torture or death for doing so. A good number of the people I serve in Lewiston have not been quite so fortunate. You see, I know in intimate detail the histories of dozens of people here in Maine seeking asylum, individuals who've suffered unspeakable political violence for doing something akin to what I'm doing right now, expressing an opinion openly.